Hi, I'm Eunice Elliott, and it's an honor for me to bring to you Mayor Randall Woodfin, who will be delivering the State of the Community Address, and we'll be discussing where we've been as a city and where we're going.
It goes without saying how challenging the last 10 months have been for our world and our community. As a people, we all have been tested by a pandemic and the economic hardship it has created, by systemic racism, which brought about civil unrest that reached a boiling point over the summer, and an awakening that continues today. And just a week ago, a constitutional crisis brought about by those who would provide misinformation in order to drive a deep wedge between Americans for their own personal gain. We have indeed been tested, and I believe as a city, we are stronger and closer because of it. 2 weeks ago, I was in a hospital bed undergoing treatment for COVID pneumonia in my left lung. Like you, I was already acutely aware of the dangers of COVID-19. It had just taken a personal toll on my family with the loss of my grandmother. But in that hospital room, I found myself experiencing it in a new and disturbing way. I was aware of the many other patients in that wing of the hospital, facing similar and in many cases, much dire circumstances than me. My nurse, who was a 30-year veteran in the health community, described a situation she had never experienced before and a level of death she had never witnessed before. From my hospital bed, I was deeply moved and humbled by the outpouring of prayers and messages of support. I was reminded how we all face this challenge together and how we support each other with the simple act of wearing masks and social distancing. One of the treatments I received was plasma. This is blood donated by people who've recovered from COVID-19. The antibodies from the blood help boost my body's ability to fight the virus. In all the ways we as a community move to support each other, this is yet another example. The healing blood from another helped my recovery. On this day in which we honor Dr. King, I am reminded by a passage from his letter from the Birmingham jail. Dr. King wrote, in a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. Now, every decision I've made by this administration over the past 12 months has been through the lens of saving lives. In the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, when it became clear that the coronavirus would spread quickly and dangerously among our most vulnerable, including seniors and those with underlying health conditions, we did not have the luxury to play politics. We had to shut down. We had to make face covering mandatory. We had to save lives. When our small business community and hourly workers felt the bitter impact of COVID-19's effect on our economy, we knew we had to move swiftly to keep them afloat. Most of these businesses only had 10 or so days of cash on hand, and at a time it wasn't clear when or if they would receive federal assistance. And so we moved with intent to establish a public-private partnership known as Birmingham Strong. Our community can only be as strong as our small business owners and wage workers. And so when they suffer, it's clear we all suffer. But I'm proud to say that nearly 100 small businesses were able to sustain through this crisis with the first lift from Birmingham Strong. Hundreds of displaced workers were able to pay their utility bills, buy food, and hold out longer through the Birmingham Strong Service Corps. I vividly recall the night of May 31st, when the fury that erupted nationwide over the injustice of George Floyd made its way to our streets. I remember walking the streets of our city, seeing the damage firsthand. And as we moved to secure our community and help those whose windows were shattered and livelihoods hung in the balance, I was so struck by the spirit of our city. Strangers stood side by side with public works employees, cleaning up debris, helping small businesses reopen, and showing kindness to those shaken by the unrest. I remember a young mother. A young mother brought her children to Lynn Park to clean up debris, explaining this was their home, and we must take care of our home. A week later, that same mother and her children, along with many of you took photos in front of storefront murals and street art that affirm Black Lives Matter. The spirit of Birmingham has been on display over the last 10 months, forged in the heat of crisis, much in the way iron was forged in our city in the early days 150 years ago. The livelihood of our neighborhoods and our local businesses is strengthened when we collectively move together. This is what Dr. King would call the interrelated structure of our reality. This is what I would call for us progress together. Even in the face of a global pandemic and economic crisis, we have not deviated from governing our laser focus on neighborhood revitalization. We are only as good as the neighborhood with the lowest quality of life in our city. And despite the economic crisis, which has created a projected revenue shortfall for our budget, we remain committed to investing in our neighborhoods through street resurfacing and sidewalk repair and so much more. Neighborhood revitalization, as you know, starts with stabilization. And more than 1,100 blighted houses have been demolished, and in the last year, we reduced the backlog condemned structures by more than one half. And after years, even decades of talking, this past year we saw real movement towards rejuvenating key commercial hubs in our neighborhoods. For example, in Inslee, work is underway to reimagine the Ramsey McCormick building site as a catalyst for redevelopment of the Inslee Business District and the overall neighborhood area. In the Crestwood area, the demolition of the old Central Plaza Mall that we are all familiar with if you grew up in Birmingham will now give way to Birmingham's future as a regional hub for logistics. The Amazon facility that will open there will bring more jobs for our city, for our residents, and new opportunities for growth. And with the council's recent approval of the massive redevelopment of Caraway Hospital campus, a hospital I was born in, grew up in North Birmingham. The residents of this area deserve this shot in the arm and will see an unprecedented investment that will provide housing, new business growth, and jobs. Now more than ever, Birmingham's growth is set to rejuvenate our neighborhoods. And as we consider public safety, investment and development in our neighborhoods also depend on people in our communities. Bottom line, feeling safe. While we have seen another year of decline in overall crime, it is not perceived by many in our neighborhoods because of the persistence of gun violence. While overall violent crime, including rapes and robberies and many others, have been reduced for a second consecutive year in our city, unfortunately, homicides remain up. If I'm honest with you, this keeps me up at night. And it goes beyond figures and stats. These aren't just numbers we're talking about. These are real lives, family members and neighbors, church members and coworkers, people we know, people we love. Now, many of you all remember that I publicly declared that gun violence in the city of Birmingham is a public health crisis. And in the event of such a crisis, you turn to the experts for help. We've worked closely with Chief Smith and the Birmingham Police Department. And together, this administration, along with BPD, have been teaming up to support both prevention initiatives and strategies to help those who return from prison to avoid being pulled back into a cycle of crime. Through law enforcement strategies, we've seen gains and some improvement, but it doesn't happen through enforcement alone. The truth is, we need everyone's collective help. We need everyone to be mentors to our young people in need of guidance. We need you not to turn a blind eye to those you know who are doing wrong. We need you to dismiss the harmful mentality that speaking up for what's right is not wrong. And together we can break this cycle of violence. But in order to build safer neighborhoods, we must also ensure confidence in our public safety system. I'm proud of the work our Public Safety Task Force did in 2020, which established a detailed recommendation that the strategy to ensure accountability as well as confidence in those who serve our city. Many of those recommendations will be put into action in the coming weeks. As a city and as a community, it's not just about public safety and blight removal and neighborhood revitalization. What real investments are we making in our youngest generation? If a city is only as strong as its most needful neighborhoods, then as a people, we are only as strong based on the opportunities we provide for our young people. This past year, about 500 recent Birmingham High School graduates started their freshman year of college as a part of the Birmingham Promise. And we can't talk about progress without supporting our greatest resources, which is our emerging workforce. The Birmingham Promise, which provides both work experience and tuition for Birmingham City School students entering Alabama colleges and universities, continues to be a life-changing experience for our young people. Now just imagine an entire generation with no student loans and an opportunity to return to Birmingham with a degree to purchase a home or start a business. Listen, I look forward to announcing the new partners in this public-private partnership. But as a city, this is where we must continue to go, investing in our youngest generation. We look forward to seeing more students enroll in higher education following graduation this spring. Remember what I said earlier about a community uplifting each other? The Promise is yet another face of that progress. Of the many losses we've experienced in 2020, few hit hard as the passing of the legendary Representative John Lewis. He truly was the personification of courage. He left us with these words which have even more relevance today, and I quote, "Take a long, hard look down the road you will have traveled once you have made a commitment to work for change. Know that this transformation will not happen right away. Change often takes time. It rarely happens all at once." As I reflect on that, know that change takes time, but also know that this administration is working tirelessly for you in each of our 99 neighborhoods. Know that Birmingham's legacy was built on resilience. And remember Dr. King's words: whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Know that progress is achievable. Together. Thank you.
We are a city birthed from adversity. Trouble has been inescapable, but Birmingham has a reputation for rebounding, for making the possible possible. We are a city of builders, and we will rise again. Hard times don't last, but the spirit of Birmingham is everlasting. We are the blueprint for change in America, a healthier, more unified city. In an era of distancing, we've never been closer together. It's time to rediscover, reclaim, rebuild, recover.
Mayor Woodfin, first of all, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling better.
Much better.
It's I won't lie to you, it was a rough couple of weeks. I consider myself fortunate that the doctors were able to find pneumonia only in one lung instead of both. And as I consider other people's plight, including my own grandmother, other people who didn't make it out of the hospital, I'm appreciative of where I am. I'm not 100% yet, but I am way better than I was. And I'm grateful for everybody, the prayers, the encouragement, the texts. I owe a lot of follow-up to people, so I'm better.
Well, we're glad to see you back up and on the job and feeling somewhat better and having been touched so personally by the pandemic and also being in charge of helping the city through it. And you spoke to some of that, but can you talk about what are you most excited about for our future?
In the immediate, as in like the vaccination being available to our citizens. This virus, y'all, is still real. And we are in a new year, but the sense of urgency, especially that we had last March of 2020 and April of 2020 and May, where there were so many questions, we now need to ramp up the vaccination available to our citizens. I'm thinking about people like my own mother, who still hasn't come out. She's been on house arrest, and at this point, she's probably just freaking out a little bit because she's tired of being in the house. But I'm like, mother, just be patient a little bit more for the vaccine. And speaking with UAB, what I'm most excited about in the immediate is ramping up wholesale for citizens in Birmingham to be able to get this vaccination, so people can start moving about and, protect themselves.
Not just your mom is stir crazy, all of us, but can you speak to still how important it is? It's just because we're tired of COVID doesn't mean COVID has gone away it's not tired of us. It's still here, and still the precautions that we need to be taking individually in our households and as a community.
So to be clear, unfortunately, COVID is still rampant. It's still taking people down and under, and it's still killing people. And this is not the time to relax. This is not the time to just go out. This is not the time to just do what you want with your hands and hug people and touch people and engage people who don't live in your household. If there was ever a time to be diligent and safe, this is it. This is the moment. Right when the vaccine is available is when I feel the coronavirus is its most rampant of attacking people.
Right, because we get relaxed, we see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're not doing what we need to do to try to keep it down. But again, super happy that you are back, and a lot of people pass along their well wishes through me to you as well.
Absolutely.
So to city business, I know you've spoken a lot about tearing down old structures that are not serving the city well. Can you speak a little bit more about that? And then beyond what has been demolished, what we're building?
Right, so neighborhood revitalization is an interesting term. It's something I've been saying for 3 years I've been mayor. But it's always been in phases, right? That if I use the analogy of going to a dentist. If you're wanting to do some things, you got to get rid of the decay first, right? With your teeth. There's been a lot of decay in Birmingham. The decay has been in the form of mostly residential blighted houses that are beyond repair. So we spent a considerable amount of time in the first few years in office just removing the blight. There's a huge backlog of blight. So that's where our attention has been. Now that we've gotten over 1,100 structures removed, what we don't want is a snaggitude neighborhood, right? You don't want to pull up in the block and you got this pretty house and then you got these 2 empty lots. Because the city of Birmingham can't be in the business of it's not sustainable just to cut grass. And so now what we got to shift our energy to is going vertical with more single family housing. Chris Hatcher, who's over our community development department, has been working with his team, and we are moving aggressively, especially in 2021, to shift our energy not just towards blight removal, but how do we partner with developers, et cetera, and go vertical with single family homes. I'm happy that the new Secretary of Housing, Representative Fudge, will be over HUD, because I think we're in a position to partner with the federal government related to some of the housing programs we want to do in the city. And it's not just affordable housing. We want to talk about and commit to market rate housing as well in some of these neighborhoods.
Out of all of that you said, I actually probably got most stuck on Snaggletooth neighborhoods. Thank you for that. So being in charge of 99 neighborhoods and having torn down over 1,000 structures, what about that person that says, I don't see it in my neighborhood? All of us want to see, you're talking about progress, but what do you say to the citizens that are still anxious about seeing more?
It's coming. Unfortunately, with the thousands of structures, you can't tear down all of them overnight. But we've averaged one a day. And with 99 neighborhoods, this is not a small city. Asking people to be patient when you've been the mayor 3 years is probably not fair. We need to move as fast as we can. There's something that touches everybody. If I haven't been able to remove that blighted structure yet, hopefully we've been able to repair that pothole that's been there for years. If we haven't been able to do that pothole, maybe we've done that sidewalk that's been unwalkable for quite some time, or pave that street, or work with the waterworks to fix that sewer issue. And so in everybody's block, we've attempted to do something over the last 3 years, but You know, progress, this is more about progress more so than just about snapping your fingers. And I like the direction we're moving in. It is getting better. But what we inherited, which was 30 years of disinvestment, you can't fix in 3. We'll continue to work.
You're working on it. And that's the thing that I know in my own neighborhood. I have seen changes, I've seen progress, and I encourage people all the time to reach out, contact you. We'll definitely give all the contact information at the end of our chat. Talk to me more beyond infrastructure of the city, our actual, you spoke about our most important commodity, our youth. Talk to me about programs that you've instituted that are going to invest into, already investing into our young people, and how we can expect to see that return on investment.
So when I became mayor, I spoke about poverty. And I'm going to speak to poverty right quick. Birmingham has a high concentration of poverty. It's well over 20%. And as an administration, I felt it's important to be creative in like fighting poverty. How do you fight poverty in a creative way? Again, it's one of those things you can snap your fingers and just make poverty go away. You got to make short-term investments and long-term investments. So that's where we came up with the Birmingham Promise. Long-term, I thought is quite simple. If every single Birmingham student has an opportunity to go to college or university, they don't have to pay for tuition. We don't ask them questions about their GPA. We don't ask them questions about their SAT or ACT score. They just live in our city limits, and they just finish one of our 7 high schools. And if you are accepted into a state 2-year, 4-year school, you can go tuition free for all 2 years, all 4 years, then we're going to provide that. And that is what we've done in providing the first-year graduates. Over 500 graduates are a part of this program now. The other piece of that fighting poverty, and I don't think people even see it, is we're offering opportunities for every junior and every senior to leave high school early, work at least 16 hours a week for a total of 16 weeks, and be paid $15 an hour.
Wow.
Because we believe they should be in a position to support themselves if they want to help their own families. And this whole conversation that's nationwide about a livable wage, we've created a unique structure that the city of Birmingham pays $7.50 an hour, and the employer matches the $7.50, and young people are making a $15 livable wage. That's part of the Birmingham Promise. This is our way to provide opportunity for our young people. This is our unique way of fighting poverty, and this is our way of investing in our city's future and our younger generation. And I'll tell anybody, this is something you have to support. I don't care how you feel about what we're doing. You can't fight this because this is the best and the right thing to do for our youth.
And what a lot of people tend to compartmentalize poverty and crime and neighborhood revitalization, it all goes hand in hand. And so when young people have options, they're less likely to commit crimes, to giving them opportunities to have sustainable wages, and then also the opportunity to go to school. We're going to talk more about the Birmingham Promise, and more information is available online, but we're looking still at deadlines. So you're talking about vaccinations and trying to make sure we have the best rollout possible here in Birmingham, but also with these students that are interested, they're on the clock as well. The deadline is March 1st. For them to complete their FAFSA, their federal aid. And so we'll also have more information that you can look at that on the website. So when we're looking at this year, 2021, we were all looking forward to 2021, looking to see 2020 in the rearview mirror, and we've already had a very challenged, the longest 2 weeks of most of our lives already. Can you offer us something as a city, as a community, to just get excited about again?
Yeah, I think, listen, there's going to be some alignment with resources. People have struggled in 2020. There have been a lack of resources. People have hurt, the small business owner has been hurting. The hourly worker has been hurting. Anybody, as an employer, everybody's hurting. I think resources will be available for everybody that's hurting in 2021, so that's a great place to start. I think the second place is opportunity. I think the economy will get better. I think there will be more opportunity. I think we as a city will be as aggressive as we were in the middle of the pandemic with creating more job opportunities. We will continue to promote and communicate to our residents, these opportunities exist for you. Take advantage of it. And so I'm excited about 2021 because I I just feel it's going to be a better year than 2020. I feel there's going to be more opportunity for our citizens. I feel there's going to be relief actually from the federal government instead of what we've experienced the last few years and months of just them fighting cities. We're actually going to have help from the federal government, which is needed in a time of a crisis.
We're all looking forward to being able to have more federal support for our cities and some of our special needs. Again, we are all so happy to see you on the mend. We'll continue praying for your full recovery. Anyone who has any questions about any of the programs can find more information at www.birminghamal.gov. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Mayor Woodfin.
Thank you so much.